South Harris is one of the most enchanting parts of the Western Isles. Its beaches are famed the world over. This is Scarista Beach. And many songs have been written in praise of the sands here at Luskentyre. If the west of South Harris is especially pleasing, the east is rather more formidable in appearance. The famed Scottish poet Norman MacCaig described the rugged, stony terrain perfectly. The narrow bay has a knuckle of houses and a nail of sand, by which the sea hangs grimly to the land. The township of Entaup. It was named Leverborough by a former landlord, the soap baron Lord Leverhulme of Port Sunlight, who tried to make it a centre for the herring fishing industry after the First World War. South Harris and the village of Rodel. On the outskirts of this village is St Clement's Church. It was built in the early 16th century of sandstone imported from the Isle of Mull. It's very distinctive, as you can see, and its stone carvings are beautifully carved and well worth a look. The Isle of Harris is effectively divided into two regions, north and south, and they meet in the middle at the township of Tarbert. East of Tarbert is the island of Scalpay. Its bridge was officially opened by Prime Minister Tony Blair in 1998. The community of Scalpay is a lively and thriving one, based mainly on the southwestern seaboard. There's a measure of crofting land here, but the mainstay of daily life is fishing. Elanquas Lighthouse was the first, and for a long time the only lighthouse in the Western Isles. The original tower was erected in 1788. The Harris Hills have their own beauty to be savoured before we head north to Lewis, the largest island in the Western Isles archipelago. The district of Uig is situated on the west side of Lewis, amid some of the most magnificent scenery to be found in the whole of Scotland. It was here in the sand dunes of Uig that the famous chess pieces known as the Lewis chessmen were discovered. It's believed they were brought to the island in the 12th century, during the period of Viking rule. There's very different coastline to be found at Arsthúke, typical of the varied landscape of the Western Isles. In the middle of Loch Roig is the island of Great Bernera, which is a very successful lobster fishing centre. The bridge to Great Bernera from mainland Lewis was built over 50 years ago, after a great deal of lobbying by the islanders themselves, I'm told. Crofting is still commonplace all over the Isle of Lewis, and many of the traditional crofting methods remain intact here. Lewis people are acutely aware and protective indeed of their heritage and history. Many villages have their own historical society. Conservation work is ongoing here in Gardanan, the last remaining group of traditional black houses on Lewis. It's nice to see these unique dwelling places being put to good use in the 21st century by the island's many tourists. Still on the west side of the island is the village of Carloway. In terms of prehistoric interest, on no account should the Carloway Broch, or fortified tower, be overlooked. It's thought to be 2,500 years old. The building skills used to create it were highly sophisticated, obviously, judging by the fine condition it has retained to this day. On the eastern slopes of Loch Roig, one of the greatest prehistoric stone circles in the British Isles, the Standing Stones of Callanish. They are 4,000 years old. Unlike Stonehenge, which relates to the sun, the Callanish stones appear to relate to the astronomical observations of the moon. The area surrounding Callanish is rich in terms of prehistoric remains, most of those between 3,000 and 4,000 years old. It's little wonder that archaeologists visit the island in droves. On the east coast of Lewis is the administrative centre of the Western Isles, Stornoway. It was often referred to in the past as Great Stornoway of the Castle. Lewes Castle was built by Sir James Matheson in the mid-19th century. It was subsequently home to Lord Leverhulme before it became a college of further education. Dutch fishing fleets were often to be seen in Stornoway Harbour during the 17th century, and by the 19th century it had become a thriving fishing port. Stornoway's economic success in this respect can be seen from the many grand houses throughout the town. For a fuller view of the island's history, a visit to the Stornoway Museum is highly recommended. These are the areas of Coll and Back, north of Stornoway. And Tolsta Head on the northeast, where rocks and stacks of a kind unique to the west coast of Scotland are plentiful. There's evidence of prehistory throughout this region also. An Iron Age burial ground has been discovered, for example, in Barvis. the expansive Barbas Moor appears bleak and menacing to some, yet peaceful and inviting to others. The beaches on the north coast. The district of Ness, encompassing many separate villages, is a unique, self-contained Lewis community, very much with its own identity. The Western Isles end here at the Butt of Lewis. And apart from the islands of Sulishka and Rona, the next stop is the Faroe Isles. This really does feel like the edge of the world.